Welcome to Thrive Guys, the show where two friends talk about how they manage their busy lives, the technology they use, and the challenges they come up against in the modern world. This is episode 1, Task Management. I have a confession. I downloaded Todoist yesterday, and it's the first time I've ever downloaded it. I always hear really good things about it and people using it and swearing by it, and it kind of got me thinking, because it was very different to the way that I do things. So I was quite keen to talk to you about actually taking a step back out of software, like what's the task to you? Because we talk about this all the time, and I've never really asked the question. So, I'd like to talk to you today about how do you get things done? What is a task to you? How does that all work? So yeah, fill me in, mate.
Cool. So a lot of my task management stuff is essentially outside of work. Right. It's all of my personal tasks, because it's different between you and I, because I work from a ticketing based system. So everything's prioritized kind of already for me. So I look at stuff and client says everything's broken. That's obviously going to be a severity one in my ticketing system. So I know what that's categorized as. I know what technology it is. I know what I should be doing. I strictly use, not strictly actually, I use Todoist mainly to put stuff like, girlfriend comes home, starts nagging me and says, "Oh, you need to get more bread." And I go, "Yeah, no problem. I'll write that down. I don't have to think about it. I'm not going to run across the road to the shops now and get it, but I don't have to think about that." And I go, "Yep, she asked me, whatever, bread." I don't put a timer on it. The best thing about Todoist is it takes natural language. So if I said, "Joe, let's have a catch up tomorrow," you just type tomorrow, 9 a.m, catch up, whatever, with me. You can assign it to different people. Like we have a house Todoist where we assign different tasks. So if she's like, "It's your turn to hoover," which is, I think, 3 times a year we've agreed.
Wow. When
that happens, she'll assign the task to me, and it'll pop up on my Todoist and say, "You've got to do it." And all I do is tick it off. And then, I also use it for recurring tasks. I know we've talked about streaks before, but I use Todoist for stuff that I need to do. Like every Thursday, my bins go out. So I'm like, cool, repeat. And I just tick it off. So at least at the end of the day, even if I'm getting into bed and I'm looking at the list and I go, "Well, I'm supposed to put the bins out," it's like, I need to tick that off. So I need to go and make sure I've done my bins. It's not like a reminder. I don't want notifications popping up like you have to do this. It's just that I constantly refer to that list. On the flip side of that, I do use it in work for tasks that aren't necessarily ticketing related. So a colleague calls me and says, "Mate, can I pick your brain for a minute? It's about this." And I say, yeah. And I'll just type it in and remind, maybe in put a time, 2:00, call this person. Or somebody says, "Oh, have you got that document?" I go, "Yeah. I'll get it to you by the end of the day." I'll just write in there, because I don't want to necessarily raise a ticket. So I've got my work related tasks, and then I've got additional tasks, like ad hoc tasks, and I instantly put them in there. Even if somebody calls me and says, "Oh, can you just take a quick look at this case?" I'll go, yeah. Provided it's not something that I can just do immediately, like if it's a 2-minute thing. But sometimes people will be like, "Oh, can you go grab a screenshot from this client?" Or can you dig out that document from 2015 that you fixed something? Do you know what it was? And it's like, "Well, I can't remember," but you'll just write a note like, "Check incident from 2015." And if I know what it is, I've noted it down. Because a lot of the stuff I'm looking at automating, and it's like, I'll message people and say, "Do you need anything that needs automating?" And they're like, yeah. I need this task automated. It's in this ticket. It's kind of something that we do that's repetitive. And I go, cool. So I'll take that reference, I'll put it in my Todoist and just crack on and say, "Tomorrow, look at this."
Right.
And because it uses the natural language, it's just so easy to have in your Windows or in Mac or on your phone. Like if you're on the go, like this morning, if I was having an idea, I could write it down.
Yeah.
And the best thing about it is you can have subtasks. So you can have, I don't know, for my production stuff, I've got a project that's associated to the production company, and I've got all the clients under it. So I can categorize per what they're doing. If they've got a song, I'll put song name, whether it's being recorded, mixed, mastered, or released, and what I'm doing for them. But that being said, I kind of dip between that and Notion, because Notion has the Kanban functionality, which has only recently become available to Todoist.
I saw that yesterday. I was going to ask you about that. So
I don't really use it in Todoist, but because I'm stuck between the two. But the reason that works really well from a production standpoint or from a project standpoint is you can just drag it across. You can say all right, we've got a song, and it just sits in recording or recorded. So I categorized it like that. So you'd be recording, recorded, mixed, mastered, released. And then you can kind of just tick it off and invoiced or whatever it is. So you never really have to think about it, because a lot of the comms that I do for production, if we're talking outside of work, is just Facebook Messenger or text. Or can we do a song? Or, somebody will send me the files remote and just be like, I've Dropboxed you the files. Can you let me know when you've mixed it? And it's just put the song name in there and who it's by. New project, new song. But yeah, from a work and day-to-day perspective, if I quickly open it up now just to tell you what I've got, there's nothing seedy on it, obviously. But yeah, I don't have any notifications. I have the little, the little hub app, when you've got it set up on your iPhone home screen, so you can see the
widget.
first 3 tasks. So I've got there's a couple of websites I wanted to sign up to sell more music. So there's a website called Sound Better, but this is on my upcoming. Let me just look at today, actually. So you've got 2 functions. You can have today or you can have upcoming.
Yeah.
And upcoming's like anything over the next few weeks. So if you said, oh mate, can we have let's play Dead by Daylight on Tuesday, I'll go, yeah, cool, write it. Maybe I wouldn't write it in here because we tend to sort of, have regular comms, but if I knew I was going to forget it, I'd just write it in there. But like today, I need to bath my tortoise, obviously. And Kerry wanted to look at her Polaroid camera. So that's kind of on my list, not assigned to anyone, but it's like just as a reminder.
Yeah. Because
we have these conversations. She's like, I've got a Polaroid camera. I want to take some pictures. And it's like, cool. I don't really treat it strictly. I'll just look at that and go take some Polaroids. Is that something we're going to do today? And I'll kind of bring it up with Kerry. If she says no, you can swipe it and just move it straight to next week or to tomorrow. So it's just for stuff like taking that information from your head and just brain dumping it somewhere else. From a work perspective, though, it's not like a prominent tool for me other than ad hoc tasks. But
yeah, your brain is for having ideas, not for keeping them.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't remember who said that to me, but it's really stuck in my mind. And
Steve Jobs, probably.
Steve Jobs.
If it's you we're talking about, yeah.
Yep.
You're such a Wozniak, aren't you?
I am a Woz. Yeah, I am a Wozniak. That name does sound like an insult, doesn't it? Like an English insult. Not if you're American, you couldn't call someone a Wozniak, I don't think. But it's kind of like Wally. It's like, oh, you bloody Wozniak.
Don't be such a bloody Wozniak about it, yeah. I know we've kind of talked about my task management process, but how does that differ from yours? And what made you kind of delve into Todoist versus what you normally do? What were you looking for in it? And
first things first, the way that we manage our work life is very different.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's very clear. So my work life is very much, I make my own tasks. I kind of decide what the priorities are. As a sales exec, it's kind of up to me to decide what work is valuable and what work is not valuable.
Yeah.
And so, not only do I have lots and lots of people, tens of, maybe even hundreds of people just putting tasks on me and saying, you need to do this, both internally and externally. I have my own ambitions and tasks and things that I know that I need to do in order to be successful in my role and all of that sort of stuff. And so that's a lot of data that I then need to kind of sift through and then think about, okay, well, what actually is going to get me moving the needle? What's actually going to get me to where I want to be?
Working in sales, when you say moving the needle, do you mean, do you prioritize it on stuff that will, it might be a bit impersonal to ask, but do you base it on the stuff that will essentially make you a bit more money, or how do you categorize that? Yeah.
It has to be, because,
Understood.
In account management, it's not like new business where you're working with kind of net new customers. You're working with existing customers. And so in the tech space, that's very much, they know you warts and all. And so you have to try and balance your sales tasks and actions with actions that customers kind of put on you that aren't really what you're there to help them with, but there's kind of no one else that's there to move those along, or you're the conduit to the wider sort of organization. And so I'll phrase it like this. If I just did what everyone else wanted me to do, I would never sell anything and I would lose my job. Let's just say that, right? And I think that's probably fair to say. And I think anyone in my position who's working with existing accounts who does the work that I do would probably agree and go, do you know what? If I just lived in my inbox, lived in my emails and responded to them, customers would probably love me, but the company that I work for would be like, you're out in your ear because you're not actually generating enough business. So that's always a hard balance to strike. And I wasn't necessarily looking for anything in Todoist. I know that you raved about it, so I just wanted to kind of see what it was all about.
Yeah, I've used it for years.
It is a beautiful looking app. It is a really nice looking app. It really is. Like, it has a really nice style to it, and it is enjoyable to use. Like, no task manager is perfect, and I'll get onto what I'm using in a tick, but it's really nice. It's really nice. I mean, for the stuff that you ultimately use Todoist for, like, groceries and things like that, I just use Apple reminders. So I've got a shared grocery list with Kaylee, and whenever we run out of something, we put it on the list. And so when we go out shopping, it's just on both of our phones. We can just tick it off, and when we've got to the end of the list, that's when we know we've finished grocery shopping. So the native reminders app is brilliant for that. It's simple, it's easy. Even if you're not so technical, you can use it. It's just, and actually it has some nice features as well. One thing that I have set up in it is what's the best way of putting this? So I have location-based reminders, which I think you can do in Todoist as well, but you can do in the native reminders. And you can basically, I have it set up so that when I approach the Tesco near where I live, other shopping malls are available, or the Sainsbury's in Milton Keynes, or in the one near where you live.
Or Wagamama's, yeah.
Well, no, this is a specific reminder. I basically have a reminder that says check shopping list. So that if I'm ever going in there to pick up some crisps or something, right? If I'm just like popping in.
Share family pack, right?
Yeah, all the time. It buzzes me and tells me, just check your shopping list. Because if there's anything that Kaylee's put on that list, I can then go pick it up. And then I'm Galaxy Brain boyfriend. And that's great.
That is brilliant. And you know what? I knew that it utilised location services this morning because based on our text about having a quick chat on the podcast and catching up, obviously it's looked in my messages and said, do you want to create a reminder? I said, yep. So then it's reminded me, but I haven't had it installed because I've used Todoist. And the reason I've stuck with Todoist for so long and will continue to is because the amount of projects I've worked with over the last year and a half has grown exponentially. And I've got like 40 odd clients just sat in there as projects, and to migrate that from Todoist to reminders just to test it kind of thing it's a huge bulk amount of work. But so I installed the app this morning for reminders because there was a repeat reminder, like, you've got podcast thing tomorrow, you've got podcast, make sure you remember. And I was like, cool. So I reinstalled it and I was like, do you want access to location services? And I was like, it's a shop, it's either a glorified shopping list or a reminder. Why do you need to know where I am? But it's about thinking about that bigger picture stuff, as you said, Galaxy Brain.
It's really good. Like I specifically only use reminders for groceries. I don't use it for anything else. But actually, I did flirt with it about a year and a half ago, just using reminders for everything. So, we've not even gotten to my work tasks yet. That's a whole other thing. And I feel your pain when it comes to moving task managers from one to another. And I'll kind of circle back to that in a minute. But yeah, reminders is great. It's actually got some really good kind of power features. If someone's asked me, I've got an iPhone and I want to try and get a better hold on what the hell I'm doing with life because I keep forgetting things, stuff falls through the net, etc. How can I make my life a bit more organized? I would literally say use a combination of the stock calendar and reminders. For me, anything that needs to be done at a certain time goes on the calendar. Right. Yep. So I block time out to say, right, I'm going to do that thing at that point in time because my work life is very much scheduled like that. So if I want to make sure that I put some time aside to do something, I need to put it in the calendar. Otherwise, other people will book my diary. Anything else would go in my reminders list, and it's probably powerful enough for most people. Yeah,
but that's the thing. It's the behavior you need to change initially to be more productive. Which is what I always say is like getting Kerry to use Todoist was like a big behavioural shift. She's like, I've got a load of tasks, need to prioritise them. And it's like, we'll start by starting work maybe 15 minutes earlier and loading up whatever it is you want to use. Like, I'm not a strong advocate for pushing certain apps, Todoist is just one that I've stuck with for long enough. But as you said, any sort of Todoist app, like I think there's Microsoft To Do and stuff like that, it's going to do the same thing. You write your tasks in, but it's all reliant on good data. If you put shit data in, you get shit output. So if you wake up and put your tasks in as it's like you have to define what's task worthy. For example, for me, I don't get up and put, better make a Todoist for making a coffee, or today's yogurt day, so make a reminder. Yeah, exactly. Make sure you comb your hair or jump in the shower. It's like you don't want to be tick, 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 tick before you've even started your day. So that's the thing that I found is important, is applying a philosophy to it in terms of what you want to be contained in there. Because like, as you said, we've discussed productivity for a while, but we haven't even really got into the depths of what you use it for work-wise. There's that whole other spectrum of where you can use these, and that's the thing, they're so malleable to what you need it for, and that's why I enjoy it largely, because you can put whatever you want in it as long as it works for you, and it's a very personal thing. Like, and for her, she started using it and she was like, it's a bit long, and you have this whole attitude of it's doubling up, I know what I need to do, and it's like, well, do you? If I asked you what you've got going on throughout the day, can you list off as many things as you've got. If somebody calls you up and says, I need to add to that list, have you, where is it going? It's that age-old, I say age-old, it's that recent anecdote of people saying, oh, you should really watch this documentary, watch this film. And everyone goes, yeah, I'll add it to the list. And you think, what list? Like,
what list?
It happens to me, it happens to everyone. Yeah, I'd love to watch that. Yeah, I'll add it to my list. And you're not writing it down, apart from, I'm that pedantic that I am. Yeah.
I have a list.
Tick it off.
Why not have a list? I have a list for everything bloody else in my life. Why not have another list for movies? And I've got a list for games. And yeah, anyway, we'll stop pulling at that thread, because you'll start to think, man, this guy's absolutely nuts.
But there's some people that don't. There's some people that just remember it. That's it. And that's the thing that bothers me. I think we're both of a similar mindset and maybe similar mental capacity where you have to write it down. Some people just go, like, I could ask them on a Monday, can you remind me on Saturday at 5 p.m. that we've got to do this? And they'll, a text will pop up and you think, how do you remember that? Or it'll be in person. Like I say it doesn't happen in my personal life really, but there are people out there, strange people that remember everything.
Probably people younger than us who just have
that argument from 2003.
To do that. Yeah. Oh no, I remember stuff like that at 1 a.m. When I wake up in a cold sweat and think, oh God, that embarrassing thing that I did in 2004 where, like, I don't know, I remember I got really drunk at a gig and was shouting at the band, and the band shouted back at me, and I got in a bit of a spot of bother with the band. And I still think about that now, and that was honestly 2000, that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, but you change, don't you? And that's why we go running in the morning, to run away from those thoughts.
Run away from my existential dread, yeah. Anyway, shall we talk about what I do for work?
Yes, please, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, to be fair, right, this isn't just work. So previously, I would try and keep the two very separate. I would go, right, reminders for all of my personal stuff. And I use Notion. I'm part of the Notion Nation for all of my work stuff. As you know, Dan, I went really deep when it comes to Notion. I basically run my life from this damn thing. And there's pluses and minuses to that. It's so flexible as an platform, but it's not as pretty as Todoist, and it's not like a native like mobile experience. It's not a native like Mac experience. It's a web
That's
app,
my biggest gripe with it, realistically, is it's not I mean, it is user friendly, it's just it's not nice looking, because especially if you've got it in dark mode, it's just a big old block on your screen, and it's just, but I suppose that's not what it's for. It's for data dumping, isn't it?
It is meant to look pretty as well. I find that their dark mode it's like a murky grey. It's not like an OLED black. If it was, I would like it a lot more.
Just give me a bloody gradient, not just from the top. Give me a gradient for the whole page.
Yeah, let me choose. Give me a gradient. Pink to black gradient. That would just, for every app, that would just be delightful. I remember when I had Windows like 97 or something on Windows 98, and you could change. You could probably still do it now. I've just not tried. But you could change the kind of the theme of Windows from like blue to like grey, and then you could use like the disco color. I don't know what it was actually called. It's like high contrast. It was
like a teal and purple, wasn't it? Teal and pink.
It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It's probably like, I'm making fun of it. It's probably for people like with sight issues and stuff like that. I remember for a bit like I would just use it like that, and I remember just people would see my computer and they'd be like, what the hell are you doing? It's like, this is disco mode, right?
Right, talk to me about how your tasks come in and how do you deal with them as they come in? What's your thought process?
So I've got quite a structured process that has actually just recently changed, so I can kind of talk you through it. It's kind of fresh in my mind, where most of my inbound stuff that I'm not creating myself comes through via email. So I, at the start of the day, I set myself some time for email triage. So I'll kind of look at what's come in the kind of previous sort of period, anything that's come in the evening, etc. And I'll capture those tasks. And one of the annoying things about Notion is that it can't take input from anything. Like before I was using Notion, I used Microsoft To Do. And the thing I loved about that is that you could flag an email in your Outlook and it would then be in Microsoft To Do, so you could then schedule it. I loved that.
It's kind of like what Cortana's doing as well. Like, I don't know if you get the daily insights and stuff like that, where it just says, you said to someone 16 days ago that you were going to follow up and you have not. You're like,
hold me accountable, Mr. Computer. That's fine. So I love that stuff, but there's more emergent benefit from using Notion than a whole kind of patchwork of things that kind of don't really do exactly what I want. So it will come in, and I really try and be specific with it, because if I'm not specific with what the task is and what I need to do, it will take me longer to work out how to do it than it will to actually do it, if you see what I mean. So if I just go, I don't know, if I use like a sentence, if it would just be like, call Bob re something, read the project, that's not enough. That might be the title, but I need to put some extra narrative on it. So I can literally pick the phone up, call Bob, and while the phone's ringing, literally just read the kind of couple of sentences worth of notes in terms of like, this is what I want you to say, future Joe, so that I can get on the phone and I've already got the words. What I struggle with sometimes is if I just go, right, call Bob re project, I call him, and then we have a bit of a natter, and then I'm sort of fumbling in terms of what I actually want to say. And I really try and be specific with it. And so I capture it, I put some narrative in terms of, right, this is what I want to do. And Notion's great for that, because, whilst it's an entry in a database, you've then got a blank page underneath that entry where you can just write as much as you like, and you can relate it.
It's important to note that with Notion you can put bullet points, numbering, all that sort of stuff, all the good stuff, tick boxes. Because I always do that. Like I remember when we initially started discussing the podcast, we'd have like a list of things we wanted to discuss and kind of tick it off. I know we kind of decided that we'd have a bit more of a natural conversation, but it was really nice to see that and go, look, we've discussed that, tick. Have we achieved our goals based on what we set out? But you're right, like when it comes to a new task, you don't want to call someone up and be like, oh, whilst I've got you, it's like you want to call them up and say, I'm intending to call you. You have to put intent to some of these actions. And I work very much with the mindset that it's bullet points. Like even if I book a meeting for next Friday, I'll copy out an agenda. Like, as I said, I work on a ticketing based system, which we put notes in to say, like, this is what we've done or this is what we intend to do. But if I send a calendar appointment, I put that on there and say, like, this is what we're doing on the meeting. So it's like, we've got an agenda, let's stick to it. Because otherwise, people are people, and you do end up having to socialize, especially in the current climate. So you end up getting on a meeting and you're catching up. How was your Christmas? Happy New Year. How have you been? What have you been up to? Oh, I haven't spoken to you in ages. And then before you know it, you've spent 45 minutes and you haven't even started what you needed to do. Whereas, when you've got an agenda, you can say, yeah, nice to see you, catch up, have the social aspects, and then be like, right, this is what we need to do. Let's do it. And then have a good day. If you want to socialize, whatever.
I try and set myself up for success every time I put a task in. That's kind of like my sort of mindset, where I've had a thought and it's like, right, this is how I'm going to do this. Or I'll have like a one-to-one with my manager, which I always find really valuable, like bouncing ideas off of colleagues. I see that being something that is always valuable to do. So I'll have a quick chat with them, and they'll say, why don't you try saying this? Or why don't you try like proposing this or that or the other? And I'll write that down, and I'll contact the customer, schedule something in for next week. But I've got that narrative already there for future Joe. So that when future Joe opens up the task, it's like, oh, okay, that's fine. I know exactly what past Joe wanted me to say, so it's fresh and it's there, and I don't have to then think about it.
It's the point of not having repetitive conversations internally as well. Yeah. If you ask someone for advice, you want to take that input from that person and say, you know what, I do value your input, and I will use it. I've asked you for advice, so thanks for giving me that. And I will use that moving forwards. It's like, because I tend to find like sometimes it's a bit frustrating if someone asks for help, you give them the advice, and then 2 days later they come asking for help, and you're like,
about the same thing.
It doesn't happen too often, but it's like when it does happen, you kind of think like all that it would have taken is for you to do it two days ago, kind of thing.
It's my pet peeve. I've been at the company that I work for long enough where I get asked for advice quite a lot. Humble brag. It is like the one thing that I dislike and puts me off and makes me think twice about someone is that they'll come to me and say, what would you do in this situation? And I say this, and my expectation is that maybe it's wrong, but my expectation is that they write that down and they use it again, because that's what
makes you feel undervalued, or it makes your opinion feel undervalued if somebody's not going to do what you advised. I mean, I understand if you take it and go, oh, that's not what I would do or whatever. I just wanted to bounce some ideas off. That's what you said earlier. Bouncing ideas off someone is hugely valuable. But if somebody's like, I need to know what to do, and you say, I'm talking sales, so you'd obviously say, all right, go out there and say, show me the money. And they say, cool.
That's all it is.
I'll give that a go.
That's all I do. Yeah. Every time anyone comes to me and says, oh, I've got this really awkward client and they're saying this and that and the other, and I just say, go out there and say, show me the money. ABC, always be closing.
Also, make sure whilst you're doing it, slam your hands down and show some dominance. All right,
Yeah.
Boom, show me the money. It's a combined action, isn't it? So that would be 2 tasks for me. To be fair, I wouldn't put that as one line. If I asked you for advice and you said that, it'd be combined, because I like to compact my tasks and put, it would be slam hands plus quote, show me the money, and I tick that off at the end of the day.
Would the show me the money be a subtask, or would it
It'd be in italics? You know that it wouldn't be a subtask.
An italic.
One line.
Very nice.
That's the thing. Formatting. Perfect.
So anyway, what were we talking about? Scheduling. So you talked about sort of how you schedule your tasks. It's similar for me. So I found a really good resource on YouTube for Notion. Mm-hmm. This guy talks about not a due date, as in a DUE date, but a due date, as in a DO date. And it's kind of like a different mindset thing, where that's not the day it's due. That's not the day it has to be done. This is the day that I'm deciding to do it. Obviously, that date is going to be before the due date, typically.
I don't understand that mentality of a due date, DUE, because you're always constantly like fighting against it. You're like, I need to get it done by then. Like that's what I think, like talking about Todoist earlier, is why it's so good, because it's to do. You're like, this is something I need to do. And I know this sounds very primitive, but I will move my tasks on that list. In the phone, you can literally just hold it and move it up and down, so I know what's top of the list, and I'll tick through it. If I think it's going to take longer, move it down, or if I think it's more important, move it up. But yeah. So what's this due date then? Just the same kind of thing, or?
A DO date is the date that you've decided that is the date I'm going to do it. It's more of a commitment thing. It's not this is the date that it needs to be done by, because if you work your life by due dates, you're going to be doing everything at the last minute, because that's when it drops into your task manager, right?
And that stresses me out.
Yeah. Well, the whole point of this whole managing tasks in a system rather than swirling them around in your head is to reduce stress. I mean, that's my main objective typically. And so I have a DO date. And so when those DO dates come around, they just drop into my today view in my dashboard. I have them by priority. So priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. And then I've got other stuff which is called like errands, basically. So if it's like, if I've got something that, if I need to ring the bank, or if I need to sort out something with the house or something, then that'll be an errand. And that just sits at the bottom of the list, because, in the workday, the work's more important. And then so I sort of operate on that basis.
So you and I use Notion very, very differently.
Yeah, we do.
I'm interested to see that, because my Notion is my work dumping ground, and I'm not talking about documents, but somebody says, have you seen this issue before? I go, yeah, actually I have, because I can look through my notes and go, here's filtered via technology, via type of issue, or via whatever it is. Like I work for a Cisco partner, and in that you can classify all of the different types of technology that you've got and just click into it. So you're like, if someone is like, it's wireless. I'm like, well, I haven't dealt with wireless for a while, but there it is. I remember that, wireless, blah, blah, blah. And this is why you would probably benefit massively from Todoist, because you could separate out separate out your errands, and just then have that. So you could spend your day in Notion. I think it was you that mentioned that Spaceship U, where you keep everything separate physically, but also from a workspace. You're like, Notion is for work, and Todoist is for my personal stuff. So when you're like, I need to do something personal, Todoist, tick, or, as your reminders are.
I see what you're saying. And I think that for a while, they were separate. Mm-hmm. What ended up happening is that I'd never get anything personal done, to be honest, because they would sit in a different app, and I could ignore it. It's just reminders. It's less important. The hierarchy of software in my mind was Notion is the king and the master, and that's that's where the money is, and that's where I get all my valuable work done. And then reminders is like do the hoovering and stuff, and I don't want to do that, so I'll just ignore those notifications and that app and never look at it.
I hear you.
I totally get what you're saying. It's kind of like it's the balance between how much do you want to separate them versus how much of a problem is that going to create from an importance and hierarchy point of view, because I find it really easy to ignore notifications. Like I get stressed by them, especially on my Mac when emails just come flying in. So I've switched those off as at yesterday.
Isn't this 100% of why we kind of have, I guess, started this podcast, is the stress that comes from all the technology around you when it could be used to benefit you, right?
Yeah.
Like a big part of why we do what we do and have these conversations about categorizing and prioritizing and just all these big words, organizing and using apps, is literally to reduce stress. because otherwise you've got all of this pressure on you going, you have to do this, you have to do this, oh, and somebody calls you up. That's another thing. You've got to do it, and you feel your heart racing at some point. You think, well, you know, especially if you're a busy account exec, whatever you do, it all just piles up, and it's like, well, actually, I don't have to worry about that, or I could look at that tomorrow. So, you know, you said you've got your to-do dates. Let's say, worst case scenario, you miss something. What do you do?
I move it. That's doing something. That is doing an action on that thing. And that action, that's the important distinction, right? It's not the day I'm going to complete it necessarily. That's the objective, right? But it's the date I'm going to do something about it. And that doing something about it might be I delete it and get rid of it because it's bollocks. Do you know what I mean? That might be
the hoovering,
the thing
obviously.
That you do. Yeah, I delete the hoovering every week, mate.
But no, that's important to make a note on, right? We both operate in a very similar manner when it comes to that, because I've got tasks which I reckon have been sat in my Todoist for 2 weeks plus, which I know doesn't sound like a long time, but all I do is, and sometimes I'll look at my task and I'm like, it's the weekend, I'm not doing anything on the weekend, just move that aside. Obviously, if it's important and you know you've got stuff where it's a to-do date because it's important to do on that date. Obviously, if it's like someone's birthday, you're not like, oh, yeah, just pop that to next week. Who cares about that? Yeah. But if it's something that you know you can push back a bit, then why not alleviate that stress on yourself? Because I think everyone's guilty of being like career people, especially when they're all working from home. They're all, you know, they want to move their career, they want to progress. It's easy to put that pressure on yourself to be like, I have to do this right away. I see it with quite a lot of people. It's got to be done right now. You text them about something, they're like, I've done it. You're like, just chill. Like, you could have done this 6 weeks from now. It's just a request. And you're right. Like, sometimes you fail to meet those tasks, but there's no harm in just moving it. As long as the point of Todoist and stuff is to make sure that it does get done at some point. And
you don't forget it. Because if it's in a system and it's got a date on it, it will come at you at some point. Do you know what I mean? It's just a matter of time. So I've got a question for you. One of the things that I need to do every week to keep the system ticking over is to review where I'm at. There'll come a time where I have got all of these actions. I have to sit down sometimes and go, right, I need to replan this. It's a bit of a mess. And so I need to redraw the priorities in terms of, from what I was talking about earlier, about right, what's important to me versus what's important to other people. So keen to understand how you do that, if you do that, and how that's done in the tech that you use.
Like a review as such.
Yeah.
So mine is daily. You know, I'm up early every morning. Yeah. Without fail. So that's when I use my time. I'll take a walk and I'll sort of sit there and think, what have I got to do today? Like, I just work from a daily mindset. I don't want to think about stuff that's later in the week. If I know something's got to be done on Friday, I'll whack it in and say, on Friday, do this. And I'll look at it as and when. Like, I don't feel any need to look back through my history of what I've done or what should be done in the next few weeks. It's just, it's not something that's occurred to me. So how does it benefit you?
It's a number of things. So I've got daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly reviews. But it's important, right? Because it's very easy at the end of a day to feel like you've not achieved anything. Like, I get that feeling a lot where I just get to the end of the day.
So you're after the dopamine hit of completing it.
Exactly.
So you like the longer hits, whereas I'm just there, ping, 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 ping.
Yeah.
800 tasks completed,
See, it's the difference between my generation and yours, even though we're only about 2 years in age, right? I can delay gratification, right? You can't. It's impossible for you. You've got to be on there with them likes on them Instagrams and whatnot.
Correct, mate. The Instagrammings,
At the end of every day, I do a shutdown. I do a boot up at the beginning of the day and I go, right, what are the things that I really need to get done to make today a success?
But at your age, a boot up takes 45 minutes, right?
It's an old hard drive over here, mate. Old 54 RPM hard drive. It's clicking a bit. It's on its last legs, you know.
Yeah, it's louder than the computer nowadays, so...
I basically go, right, what's going to make today great, right? Because that's always a really good thing to set yourself up for at the start of the day, because that's what you're sort of striving for. If you make every day great, then your week will be great. If you make every week great, your month will be great. Do you know what I mean?
Do you work in marketing for ex-President Donald Trump? Make every day great.
I am in sales, so everything I do is selling something to someone. So I do that, and I look at my action list, and I put a little emoji next to all the ones that are like, if I do these 3 things, today's going to be great. And I write them out as well. I kind of write them out separately as part of this page that I have in Notion for every day, and then I review at the end of the day as part of my shutdown. I say, right, did you do the things that you said you were going to do? Okay. I rarely ever get 100% in a day. I never really get to the end of the task list, right? Because that's just the nature of the kind of tasks that I have to do. If I've done 80%, that's a decent day. That's a really good day.
Well, it's churn as well. Other stuff comes in and it takes top priority.
Exactly.
It's weird that you mentioned emojis because that's so primitive. It's almost hieroglyphic, but I loved it. That's what I loved about Notion.
Yeah.
Is like, even for clients, like I worked with someone that was acoustic and I just put the little acoustic guitar emoji. And
it's a little bit of fun.
Exactly. As I go back to
nice.
You do this for a bit of joy, right? You want to take the stress out of life and try and enjoy things a bit more. And an emoji does help. If you're happy with what your actions are, even if you're doing a sales pitch and you just put a dollar sign next to it, whatever, just enjoy that. Look in your page and go, because I get that some people probably think it's unprofessional, but this isn't. They're not documents that go out to people. It's for yourself.
No,
you're never sharing your screen and go, by the way, here's all my actions. It's like, this is
no
something I enjoy. I mean, I just put little music notes next to some of the stuff I'm working on, or if somebody's like a heavy metal band, I put the red X or whatever.
Love it.
For hardcore.
Why aren't you using the devil horns?
Yeah,
that's an emoji.
That's going to be on a task today then. Fine. That's an action.
Yeah. So
that's a paddling.
I try and get joy out of everything I do, and because I feel sometimes that at the end of a day I'm like, oh my god, I got my absolute arse kicked today. So I then at the end of every day, part of my shutdown is looking at what I've done, looking at what's waiting for other people, and what I need to kind of reschedule. And I give myself like a percentage rating. So if I've had 20 tasks and I've done 18 of them, that's a 90% day. So that's good.
I completely echo that point, but for me that's kind of counterproductive because I end up like, I'm very much of the mindset that I have to 100% things.
Yeah.
So it's different mindsets, and if it works for you, then that's all productivity is. It's what works for you. And for me, if I'm finishing my day at 98%, I'm just going to think, well, what could I have done to do the 2%, and why am I not doing it now? Like, I'm in bed. Why am I not getting up and just being like, oh shit, let's go? And like for me, I've got like a Spanish lesson I do every day, and I'm thinking if that was the last 2%, I'd sit up in bed, Rise of the Dead like Frankenstein, and be like, I'm doing it now. It's 2 minutes to midnight. I've got enough time.
There's some things that you can do that I go, do you know what? I am just going to, when I get to the end of the day and it's like, if I've got like 2 things where it's like send an email to this person, I'll just do that so I can get closer to that 100%. Like, I totally agree with that. I think if you're honest with yourself, it's very difficult to do 100% day every day. And there's always going to be things that you look to improve, because if you find the things that you look to improve, and this is what I do as part of my daily shutdown, I always put one thing: what could you have done better to make today even better? And it's usually check my emails less, check WhatsApp less, or take a longer break.
We should put that into another episode, because there's a lot of tools to consider when taking time away from work, and I think that's just as important to productivity as the apps that you use for daily tasks. It's kind of different. Like, we operate kind of slightly differently, because I do almost have 100% day every day, but because I set myself maybe more manageable tasks, not
probably,
I don't need to sound
probably
like
more
I'm
realistic targets.
criticizing. Yeah, but I I've done the same job for a very long time. I know what I can achieve. Again, our job roles are very different, but it's like I can look through my task list and go, I know I'll complete this amount of things, and if I don't, for me, I'll just move it to tomorrow. So for me, it's a 100% day, because I don't do like your shutdown where I'd look at the end of the day and go, this is what I said I'd achieve. I literally just go, this is what I'm supposed to achieve. Have I done it? Yeah. Like, I've got an empty list.
But you'll move stuff out of your list before you look at that and go, now it's empty. Yeah.
But that's the goal for me at the end of the day. Everything's got to be 100%. At the end of the day, I've got to have an empty list. Otherwise, I don't go to bed with stuff in the list.
No, me neither, because I've moved it. But that is doing something with it, but I don't consider that a complete task. Like, I don't consider that I've done something. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, so no, I get you. I get you.
It's not scientific, because not all tasks are created equal. So I had something, the majority this week has been reviewing pipeline and big long meetings with internals and long meetings externally. And so actually a lot of the little bits that I've wanted to get done but aren't that important but have just been on my list, haven't got done this week. And so that percentage complete is a bit of a misnomer, because it's, well, I might have done 50% or 60% of the tasks that I said I'd do today, but that's because I've spent half a day, doing one task, because that task is that size. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
I just try and use it as a bit of a barometer, because the other thing that I do at the end of the week, I do a weekly review, is I look at the quantity of tasks that I've completed, and I kind of get a sense of, if I've done between 40 and 70 things, happy days, because sometimes doing 70 is really easy because you've just got little bits and bobs to do. Sometimes doing 40 is really hard because you've got meetings all week, and one task can take 2 hours. And equally, to your point earlier, you might be working on something and then someone responds to something that you've been waiting to hear from them on, and they're like, right, no, we're ready to go, send me the contract. And it's like, well, hang on a minute, that everything else gets pushed to one side because I'm always hunting that dollar bill. And I just do that contract, especially when it's like, in my role, you want to shorten that cycle between someone saying yes and someone signing a contract, because then, if they can sign it the same day they say yes, they're ready to go, right? But if you take a week to get back to them with a contract, and especially in the way that my organisation works in terms of monthly cycles, that could be the difference between your committed deal that you've said to the business is going to happen slipping into the following month. So I always jump on those things, and maybe that's not the right thing to do, but that's just the way I'm wired. Do you know?
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. You have to have like a common goal, which is that's what I was asking earlier. Is how you prioritize it in terms of, in your work cycle, it's what's going to pay the bills, right?
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it's what's the most broken,
exactly.
or who's impacted the most. And that's why it's quite easy for me to prioritize work that way, because if someone calls me up and says everything's down, that's obviously not just in our system, but in my head is top priority. But I'm not going to go, hang on, Mr. Client, I've just got to add this to my Todoist because it's my top priority. It's like, that's why, I keep work and personal very, very, very separate. But
no, that makes sense. So it's been fun to talk about this, actually, because you and I, we think very similarly about these things, but actually the way that we run our lives is so different, because what we do is so different, and some of the things that I thought we were on the same page on, we're not. And actually that's really interesting. It's not like either of us have got the right or the wrong answer. It's what works best for us and our brains and our environment. And I'd be happy to show you the rabbit hole that I've gone down in Notion, because I don't think you've seen what I've been doing with it for the last kind of 6 months or so.
No, and that's why it's good, because they've evolved in different ways. Like mine is literally like a tech forum for myself, because I don't want to remember all this stuff. And sometimes technology progresses, and then some people are on older systems, some people are on newer systems, and it's like I can just look through my guide and say, well, actually, this is what it was at that time, and just find all of my own information without having to scour the internet. You can, because you can embed bookmarks and stuff, you can literally have the page embedded straight from the internet, so it's really good. But I think we should pick that up, and we should also pick up how we take time away from work and why that's important.
Well, that's what I want to talk to you about next, actually. So perhaps next time we put some time in, that's what I want to talk about. Because I think probably my biggest room for improvement is switching off. Yeah. From the conversations that we've had like in the past, you're pretty good at it. So I'm going to be using that as a learning opportunity. So I'd be quite keen to talk about that. So why don't we talk about that next time, right?
It's a very polite way of saying that I'm lazy.
No comment.
I'm always switched off. I'm checked out. That's me in total.
Phoning it in every day, man.
The important thing to kind of finish this off with is to say that it's important for people to understand that productivity is what works for them. Like having a list might not help everyone, and having a Notion database full of all your junk might not be for you, but there's definitely the tools out there. If you think about any kind of task that you could automate, or anything you don't want to have to remember, there's stuff out there for you to improve productivity. It doesn't even have to be an app. Like I've got a physical paper journal that I sometimes write stuff in, because it's just a nice therapeutic thing to do, to sit there and go, do you know what? Keep my birth dates in here, or keep, whatever it is. It's a nice paper. It's a monthly planner.
It's like a brown leather with nice pages, and it
just makes you feel good about what you're doing. And that's kind of where I think productivity helps the most, is the mental implications of it. Like before,
Yeah.
I don't really understand how I operated without any of these tasks
No.
or any of these apps or any of these, even writing stuff down. And it's like, if you look at a lot of business training and stuff like that, they always say the same thing, like write down your goals, like physically write them down. Don't just sit there and have a conversation between yourselves. Oh, do you know what? It'd be nice to do this. Or, for example, the podcast. It's just, we should do a podcast. It doesn't necessarily have to be a task, but you should write it down and say, how do we achieve that? And it very quickly becomes let's just have a chat, let's record it, and then check.
See what happens.
1 million listeners in 3 minutes.
Yeah, we'll see. I think I wanted to kind of expand on what you said earlier around the system not mattering. I think you're absolutely right. I think that what is fundamental, it's not about the system, it's about the process and the behavior change, and it's about the mindset change of getting things out of your head, because that will just create stress. Like, no matter how good you think you are at remembering stuff, there's loads of like science around, you know, your brain having these open-ended synapses.
Yeah.
And
finishing each other's
sentences.
synapses. Oh, okay.
Damn it. I missed the joke, sorry.
It's all right.
But I think that doing something often enough and regularly enough and consistently enough will create a habit out of it in like 60 days, right? So I think just as long as you, whatever tool someone wants to use, as long as you just keep doing it, you'll get benefit from it, you know? And I think that you try these things for a week and then you bin it off. Well, I mean, you've not really given it a fair shot. So yeah, I agree with you completely. It's not about the tool, it's about how you use it.
That's a nice little quote to finish it on.
Yeah. It's not about the size. It's anyway. That's all we have time for today. So I think that's a good place to leave it. Thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to our show. And if you really, really liked it, please consider giving us a 5-star rating. You know, that really helps us out. It helps us grow our audience. So, you know, only if you loved it, but if you did, then that'd be really good. If you'd like to hear more from Dan or myself, please follow us on Twitter at ThriveGuysPod. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Dan.
Goodbye.